Today we're going to be looking at video game titles, specifically from franchises that ended up with confusing or downright retarded naming choices as time went on. If you guys know any other series with names that went off the rails, let me know in a comment and maybe I'll feature it in one of the next videos. We'll start off with a series everyone knows, Mario Kart. The first two entries, Super Mario Kart and then Mario Kart 64, followed the brilliant naming convention during their times by having the console's name as part of the title. But after that, things took a wrong turn, no pun intended, with the sequel for the Game Boy Advance being titled Mario Kart Super Circuit instead of something like Mario Kart Advance. And the same happened 2 years later with the GameCube with Mario Kart Double Dash. Now, this one I can excuse because the gimmick is that you control two characters instead of just one, and naming it something like Mario Kart GameCube would sound stupid. But following that, Nintendo returned to naming the entries based on the platform they were released on, with Mario Kart DS and then Mario Kart Wii 3 years later. So far, 4 out of 6 entries include a console in their name. Overall, pretty consistent, but once we enter the 2010s, Nintendo put the pedal to the metal and went full retard, something you never do, calling the next 3 games Mario Kart 7, Mario Kart 8, and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I've never seen anything like this. Normally, as a series goes on, companies drop the number in the title in favor of a subtitle or other descriptor, and in some cases, when doing a reboot, they just call the entry the name of the franchise, like Mortal Kombat. But in this case, Nintendo did the opposite, ignoring all industry standards, common sense, and just did whatever the fuck they want like they always do. Looking at it from the company's perspective, I guess it would be a little confusing for consumers if they called the games Mario Kart 3DS and Mario Kart Wii U because there are 2 other games with very similar titles. We also can't forget the fact that part of the reason why the Wii U failed was because of its name. A lot of the intended audience just thought that the Wii U was a Wii add-on, so dropping the system from the 3DS and Wii U entries does make sense. But why in God's name did they go with numbers? These games had gimmicks too. Why weren't they given the Double Dash treatment? They stand out on the list like a sore thumb. And the cherry on top? They dropped the number after Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and called the newest release Mario Kart World. Could you imagine if they didn't do that and they just called it Mario Kart 9 or Mario Kart 10? Or what if they included the Switch 2 in the title and named it Mario Kart Switch 2? That would be so stupid. Nintendo isn't the only one engaging in this naming sacrilege. Have you ever seen the Crash Bandicoot series? The first 3 games released on the PlayStation 1, hailed as some of the greatest platformers of all time, were named in sequential order, but if you look online for any information regarding the 3rd game, Crash Bandicoot Warped, you'll see that a lot of articles don't include the number in the title, and that's because technically the North American release excluded it. In promotional material, the number isn't always there, and when you boot the game up, the number 3 clearly shows in the opening sequence, but it's never read aloud by the narrator. As for the box art, in North America and Europe, the 3 is there, but it's hardly noticeable, unlike the second game where the 2 is directly in the middle. The Japanese box art, on the other hand, is much better. It doesn't convey the game's time-traveling aspect, but at least you know it's the 3rd game in the series, and if you turn around the CD case, there are clocks everywhere, so I'm not sure what happened with this. Crash 3's logo is a visual failure. Anyway, after this trilogy, the numbers were dropped entirely until Crash 4, but we'll get to that later. Between Crash 3 and Crash 4, the names just kind of went all over the place, and part of the reason why that happened is because the IP was passed around like a hot potato to a bunch of different developers. First we had Crash Bandicoot: The Wrath of Cortex, and then after that they dropped Bandicoot and the subtitles, opting to use names like Crash Twinsanity and then Crash of the Titans. It wasn't until 2008 that they included a subtitle again with Crash Mind Over Mutant, and excluding the PlayStation Trilogy remaster that was released in 2017, the most recent and final mainline Crash game debuted with not only a number but a subtitle. That's the Crash Bandicoot 4 we were talking about, which is a direct sequel to Crash Warped, but the thing is, Crash Warped wasn't actually named Crash 3, but it technically is Crash 3. I don't know what the fuck's going on. Why even bother putting the 3 in the game's logo if you aren't gonna use it anywhere anyway? Another series known for its chaotic naming situation is EA's Battlefield. It started with 1942, obviously referencing the game's World War II setting, but the sequel, instead of having a year, had a location, Vietnam, which is fine. You can't really condense the Vietnam War into a single year, but the sequel to that was called Battlefield 2, so now we're 3 games deep with 3 completely different name formats, and one calls itself a sequel to the first game that wasn't even called Battlefield 1. Now when it comes to Battlefield 2, there are actually 2 versions of it. The PC release was was just called Battlefield 2, but the PS2, Xbox, and Xbox 360 console ports were named Battlefield 2 Modern Combat. With a subtitle like that, without further context or exposure to the series, one could imagine that the console port based on the name alone would be the definitive version, but the reality was much different. And then to confuse my younger self even further, during the same year that console ports came out, EA also released 3 expansion packs exclusive to the PC that used the console port's naming format. Yes, I know it says expansion pack right on the cover for these, but little me didn't know what an expansion pack was. Battlefield 2 was the first game that introduced me to them, and before anybody points out how I ignored the Battlefield 1942 expansion packs, well, no shit, there's no issue with how they were named. Battlefield 1942 was only released on PC. There wasn't a console release given a name similar to the expansion packs. Now, you'd think since the last mainline entry was called Battlefield 2, the next would be Battlefield 3, but no, it was actually Battlefield 2142, you fucking idiot. EA went back to using the year in the title, this time because it reflected the game's futuristic setting, and it also played off the original title's name as well, which was pretty neat. Following that, EA entered this weird phase of producing spin-offs and free-to-play games, 2 of them being console exclusives, Battlefield Bad Company and Battlefield 1943, which actually is my personal favorite to this day, but I digress. Then of course we have the free-to-play titles, the cartoony Battlefield Heroes, a South Korean exclusive remake of Battlefield 2 named Battlefield Online, not sure why they named it such, every Battlefield game has online functionality, and then a hybrid of Battlefield 2 and Battlefield Bad Company 2 came out called Battlefield Play for Free, and yes, 4 is in the title, even though we haven't gotten to Battlefield 3 yet. I also didn't cover Battlefield Bad Company 2 and its DLC, Battlefield Bad Company 2 Vietnam, so now there's technically 2 Battlefield Vietnams. So let's recap. We have Battlefield 1942, Battlefield Vietnam, Battlefield 2 Modern Combat, which remember is a console port, and then 3 DLCs exclusive to the PC Battlefield 2 that use the same naming convention as the console release. Then we have Battlefield 2142, Battlefield Bad Company, Battlefield Heroes, Battlefield 1943, Battlefield Bad Company 2, Battlefield Bad Company 2 Vietnam, Battlefield Online, and Battlefield Play for Free. Can we now move on to Battlefield 3? Yes. In 2011, EA finally had some sense beat into them and called its 9th mainline entry, I think it's 9th, I don't know, I lost count, Battlefield 3. Let's not even talk about why this game is the 3rd, let's just celebrate the fact that this and the next game in the series were consistently numbered. The next one was Battlefield 4. Finally, after 9 years and 18 releases, obviously including all the DLCs and free-to-play games, finally we have some consistency. I can't wait to see what they call the next one. God fucking damn it, Hardline? It's not even a subtitle? What's going on? They were doing so well. Oh well, you know what they say, good things can't last forever, and it can't really get any worse, right? I mean, what else can they do at this point? Go back to numbers? Wait, what the fuck? They actually did that? The next was Battlefield 1? They're calling the 12th mainline entry Battlefield 1? I know it's because it takes place during World War I, but do they really not care about these sort of things when they're coming up with names? Doesn't it seem weird that EA is just okay with a game titled Battlefield 1 if it's not the first game in the series? Am I the only one who has a problem with this? Probably. After this, they didn't even fucking care, it just got worse. The sequel was called Battlefield 5, but instead of using the number 5, EA chose to use the letter V, like the Roman numeral. I understand why they're using it instead of the number, because V for victory was a popular phrase that the Allies adopted during World War II. It's actually a pretty smart move on their part, but the only issue I have with this is this quirky symbolic double representation just gives them an excuse to do whatever the fuck they want with their names now, as if they weren't doing that already, and I guess they're never gonna just be consistent ever, because what followed that wasn't Battlefield 6, because of course it wouldn't fucking be, but instead it was Battlefield 2042, which takes place in the future, but not by much, so they put it somewhere in the middle, and then comes Battlefield 6. You know, looking at this mess makes me believe it was all intentional from the beginning. The naming choices are chaotic, but you know what? So are the games. Maybe I'm the one who's not in the loop here. Anyway, that's all I got for you right now. Do you know of any other franchises with crazy naming conventions like this? Let me know in a comment. If you want to keep up to date with what's going on and get some sneak peeks at new videos down the line, be sure to follow me on Shitter and join the Discord community. There are no moderators there to ban you for speaking your mind. If you've enjoyed the video, please remember to leave a like and comment, it really does help out, and if you would be so kind to subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. Just remember to keep notifications enabled, otherwise you'll be missing out on some of my uploads. Thanks for watching, I'll see you next time. Later.